Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image program. The Unashamed Image program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Hey guys! Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be back with you this week. Now, also, I need to apologize because I promised I was going to talk about the 5-step thought process that will get you from your stimulus to your results, but we're actually going to save that for next week because I still feel like there's a little bit more of my story, and so I kind of wanted to do that second part to my story this week. Because last week you guys learned about kind of just how the whole thing started, what I had gone through, and the catalyst, the moment that actually changed my healing, right? And that was that conversation I had with God, actually more like him conversing and me yelling, but you you get the idea. That's just kind of where it was. So I want to kind of go over what happened after, because I decided to give my will to the Lord, and he decided to take me on this crazy beautiful journey of healing over the next 18 months and get me to a point where I knew that I was healed from my husband's addiction, that it no longer stole my joy. It no longer hurt. And it was, oh my goodness, guys, it was so beautiful. It was seriously so beautiful the moment that I realized that I was healed. It was beautiful. Because my husband came in and he told me that he had struggled that day, that he had been looking at porn, that he hadn't been telling me. Like, it was kind of like this huge drop, actually, that he had been doing all these terrible things and he was the worst human alive and blah, 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 blah. And all I could do was sit there and go, okay, so what do you want me to do about that? What started this? Like, why did you decide to go down that road? And like, I wasn't upset. I actually was able to hold on to my joy. And I was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. And so, that's why I've called my group The Other Side of the Struggle, is because it literally was the other side of the pain, of the betrayal, of everything that everybody had put me through. And the joy was still there. I still had my joy intact. So that's kind of the end, but I wanted to talk to you about what happened the night that I decided to give my will over to God. That night I had just this crazy cool dream. And I've realized recently, well, not recently, but I've realized that that's kind of the way the Lord talks to me. It's very audibly. Oftentimes I hear him, and it's through dream. And this is the time that he decided to speak to me in a dream. And what was happening is I was walking through this beautiful garden. Oh my gosh, you should have seen the colors. Like, there were colors there that could not be described on this earth. Like, they were so bright and so beautiful and so vibrant and so healthy, and like everything just radiated with this glorious energy. And it, like, the green was so verdant, and it was just gorgeous. And I was just walking through this garden, and on this golden path, like the bricks were complete pure gold. There were arches of beautiful flowers, many of them my favorites: roses, irises, delphiniums. They were all there, plus many other species of flower and plant that I had never seen before. And so it was just gorgeous. And I swear, you guys, my jaw was probably dragging on that gold pathway, because I was just in awe. It was so gorgeous. And I'm surprised I didn't trip over my jaw. But I finally came to this clearing, and in this clearing was this green marble garden fountain. It was 4 tiers. And again, it was beautiful, and it was radiating the life in this garden. You could tell, because like all of the water was flowing like through the tiers. Like, there's plenty of water to circulate through the tiers, but it was also feeding life into the garden. It was watering the garden. And you could kind of tell that because you could actually see the water like flowing to different parts, to different areas. And as I sat there and I was looking at this beautiful, beautiful, well-constructed garden fountain, I heard this voice, and it said, "Do you know what you're looking at?" And I said, "No. It's a garden fountain, and this gorgeous garden." And he said, "Yeah. Do you know what it means?" And no, I don't know what it means. And the voice said, "Would you like to learn?" And I said, "Yes, please teach me." And so the voice began to teach me about the different tiers. Each one of those 4 tiers was a representation of the 4 main relationships that we have, and the way that those tiers worked fed the fruits of the garden. Okay, so I want you to think about that for a second as I tell you about this vision and this dream. He told me that the first tier was our relationship with God. And now that's the smallest, the very top tier, okay? And that's important. And I'll come back to that in just a minute and the reason why. And then he said that the next relationship was our relationship with ourselves. So I want you to envision this. The God tier, once it filled up with water, and I will say living water. Now, if you guys know your scriptures, you can understand how powerful that is, okay? Because Christ is often referred to as the living water, right? But the God tier filled up and it spilled over into the self tier. Well, once the self tier filled up, it spilled over into the third tier, which was the others tier. And each one of these tiers are getting just a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes on, okay? The fourth tier is the representation of our relationship with abundance. Now, abundance can be money, all resources, clothing, a trust and a belief that we will be provided for because we are God's children. That's kind of what abundance is. And then that tier had just a tube, a glass, gorgeous, kind of like crystal-y, diamond, shiny tube, and it pumped water back up into the top tier, the relationship with God. And that tube represented gratitude, the law of consecration, generosity, all of that. Okay, all of that. And as this spirit taught me about these tiers, he asked me this question and he said, why is the God tier the smallest? And I thought about that for a second and I was like, I don't know. That's really interesting that the God tier would be the smallest and the abundance tier would be the biggest. And he said that each one of the tiers are lined up this way because it's how much effort you have to actually put in and how much reward is actually given back. So, meaning, if you can put in 10% effort into the God tier, he gives 90 back. Now, if you're familiar with the law of tithing, now I understand that some of you that are listening to this podcast might not be a Latter-day Saint, but the law of tithing is basically that we pay a 10% tithe to the church in a generous tithing or as generous offerings. And actually that's if you listen to like millionaires and people who are very good with their money, they always donate to generous offerings, okay? And that tithing is used then to distribute to the poor and the needy, to help build our temples and our churches and to maintain them, and to also build up our bishop storehouses where people can go find food should they need it. But we pay in this tithing and we keep the 90% to do the things that we need to do with it, like pay our bills, go play, put some into savings, and to budget that way. So, but if you think about the law of tithing, if you put in that 10% and the Lord gives back 90, it's very, very important to understand that that is the way he provides for us, that he is so crazy generous with us, that when we give him one drop of water, he gives us 9 back. And we put in another drop of water, then we get 9 back. And so if we put in just that little bit of effort and we learn to trust our Heavenly Father, all of a sudden we start to understand what it means to be his child, because we get a clearer picture of who we are to him and why. Like individually, uniquely you, why? What does he see in you? Why are you so beloved to him? Why are you so cherished by this great, perfect being and creator who sees you and he only sees the very best thing that he's ever created? He's so proud of you.
And that was huge to me, guys, when I realized, and excuse me if I get a little emotional here, but when I realized how loved I was, he helped me be in awe of myself too. That I was that amazing, and that feeling has never left me. Because here's the thing that I learned, guys, from this. It was so cool that if he is this great and grand and beautiful being, perfect in every way, so incredibly majestic and loving, wants an incredibly close relationship with us, like really, really, really wants to have our back. If that's who he is, and we are his child, his so, so, so beloved child, then that means that's who we are, too. It just takes us aligning ourselves with truth, love, hope, generosity, gratitude, all of those grand characteristics that God is. And when he says, "Be ye therefore perfect," to me, that means remember who you are. You are already perfect in my eyes. Whew!
So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
You're already there. You just have to remember. You just have to remember how powerful you really are. See, the adversary wants to take away our power, and God wants us to align with him and who he is. And this is part of the reason why he is so good at being perfect, why he wants to be God, why he won't ever do anything to jeopardize that, is because if he maintains that and keeps himself to be perfect, and truth, love, beauty, generosity, patience, glory, everything that he is, that when we start to see those things in ourselves, it is exactly what aligns us with him. And when we align with him, all of a sudden our power and our potentials and our missions and our purposes, guys, this is huge, ignite. And when we see that version of ourselves, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that the adversary can do except for get us to doubt it. So, I'm going to come back to this relationship here in just a minute, but I want you guys to think about that. I want you to just marinate in that for just a minute, okay? So the next tier is, after we see ourselves the way God sees us, the next tier is the others tier, okay? Now this is all of your human relationships, okay? I would even go so far to say your pets, okay? Because they're, let's just be honest, they're practically human anyway. But this is your relationship with others, okay? Once you understand yourself to that degree, then you start to see others so clearly. And what happened here, when I saw myself the way God saw me, and I understood that I was awesome, that I had a new reverence and respect and awe for myself as his daughter, as who he saw me to be, and realized that I could be that person. I looked at my husband and I saw him in his full light and his full potential. Now, this is not something he saw. This is something that the Lord chose to show me. You cannot see your others tier clearly without seeing yourself clearly first. And so when I saw that version of him, I fell in love. Deeply, crazy, over the moon in love with that version of himself. And it gave me a version of him to talk to. Every time I saw my husband, that was the vision that came to my mind, of my husband as this, honestly, this spiritual general. And that is the space I started holding for him, that, hey, you're freaking amazing. I told him what I would see in him. I told him what I saw, and that is who God saw too. I told him the truth. Guys, oh, this is so juicy. Because once you understand God as truth, you see yourself as truth, you see others as truth, and then you have something to speak to. You speak truth to them. And that is one of the biggest things that caused my husband to change. It wasn't him doing it on his own. And I will be honest with you guys, sometimes he does still fall. Does it hurt? Nope, not at all. Because I'm too busy cherishing my joy. That I would never, ever, ever sacrifice my joy again for the actions of another person. That is something that I've learned from going through this struggle, is that my joy is far too precious to cast it before the swine. Pearls before swine, right, guys? So, yes, he still struggles with this, but his mentality has changed. He doesn't sit there and say, I should leave him, that he's the worst human in the world, that he doesn't deserve to live, and blah, 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 blah. He doesn't pull the victim card anymore because I stopped pulling it. And because I stopped pulling the victim card and I started standing in my power, he started understanding what that meant to stand in his. And it's changed everything. Yes, there's things that we're still working on because that's life. I'm not twinkled yet, so, and neither is he. So we still have things that we're working on, things that we're still healing from. But I'm okay to be his partner in this life and walk with him because he walks with me. And it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship. And I started seeing not just my husband in his light and glory and truth, but I also saw my mom, my dad, my kids, my neighbors, my coworkers, you name it. I saw them that way and I started treating them that way. My relationships changed almost overnight. And that space also is where you want to be if you're trying to create boundaries. And we're going to get to that in a few episodes. But so stay tuned because that's a juicy one too. Okay. Excuse me. But the last tier is your abundance tier. Okay. Now, what happens is when you start to treat other people as their truth and you start to communicate to other people in their truth, all of a sudden they want to follow you and they want to do things with you and they want you to kind of help lead them. And that leadership actually brings in abundance. For instance, like this coaching that I do now, it's a form of abundance. I also teach kids on math and creative writing and drawing. I teach them online, and because I see them so clearly, I have to turn people away now because I have such a full schedule all the time. When you vibrate at this energy of seeing people in their truth and loving that version of themselves, people do one of two things. They either rise to the occasion or they leave your life and allow room for somebody else to rise to the occasion. And it's pretty rare that somebody, like in my experience in the last 8 years of me doing this, it's been rare that somebody's left. I can count on maybe one hand people that have. But those that have left have given space for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other fantastic relationships to come into my life. And it's simply because people that are ready to be in that truth energy with you actually take up less space than those that need a heavier energy. So there's that. Okay? And then obviously with gratitude, with the abundance, I mean, you're starting to feel this gratitude and this, oh my goodness, Lord, I see you providing for me. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you get an even bigger trust with the Lord. And the cycle just continues to spin and to create and to go and to do, and you just, and then all of a sudden you've got this garden. You've got this garden of glorious relationships. Okay? And one of the other things I've learned as I have been doing this is that anytime I felt like one of my tiers was low in the living water, it was usually due to the fact that I had a trust issue with God. Sorry guys, I had to take just a quick little water break for a second. My voice was starting to go. But anyway, this is a trust issue with God. Any single time that one of my tears started to feel low, I realized that I was having a trust issue with God, whether or not He could provide abundance for me. And I'll be honest, that's actually something I'm still learning about. But whether He could provide abundance for me, or whether He could provide relationships, fulfilling relationships for me, whether He could provide knowledge about myself, it all came down to a trust issue with God. And so if I would learn to just sit back and trust Him, then I would have this beautiful, wonderful relationship with Him. And that was something that I really, really wanted. I wanted to be able to have Him, and I'm looking for the right words here, but I wanted to have Him consistently talk to me because I needed that clarity in my life. So any way that I had a trust issue with the Lord, after understanding myself in such a beautiful, beautiful way, I wanted that trust issue gone. Okay, so anyway, so those were some of the things that I have learned. Like, that was one of the first visions that the Lord had shared with me, and it was kind of just like the gas that I needed to get this healing journey on the road, to get it going, to keep it going, because now that's literally the way I think. I categorize everything that happens in my life, and I say, okay, what needs to adjust, what needs to change, where are things at, and what do I need to do to make sure that those tears are well balanced, to make sure that my garden is well nourished. So next week we are definitely going to be talking about the 5 different thought processes that get you from where you start, like your stimulus, to your results. Sorry, my headphones just turned off. Guys, technology. Okay. So, we're going to get from point A to point A, B, C, D, E. Sorry. Okay. So we're going to get from point A to point E, and help you guys to start using that to really, really check your mentality, to check in and see where you're at, and to learn to self-coach, because that is something that is huge in your healing. So anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna